And I was muted the whole time. Happy Monday, everyone. My name is Janelle Villiers. Welcome to the Janelle Villiers podcast. I'm really excited to be here with you today. Thank you for grace as I was having some technical difficulties, but I'm glad to be with you. This is another Monday where we're going to go over some really great topics and we're going to have a great time. So I'm really excited because today's topic is more conversation, less lecturing. We are all about writing books here, right? I love talking about how to help people write books. If you are a first-time author, go ahead and put a 1 in the chat so I know that this is your first time writing a book. If this is more than your first time, if this is your second or your third time, go ahead and put a 2 in the chat so I know. Love to shout you out. But I want to just talk about this particular topic today because I think a lot of people get stuck in their expertise, right? You have this thing that you're really an expert on and you want to share it with people. And then you end up coming across as sounding like you're just kind of like talking at people instead of talking with people in your book. And it could be a little condescending and it's not like the easiest thing on the other side of it. Like receiving that doesn't always feel good. And I can tell you definitely don't create connection that way. And especially if you're someone who is an expert in a particular area and this is what you want to help people with in your book, then connection is key. Connection is really how you're going to help people because they can see themselves in your journey or in the journey of other people whose stories that you're sharing. And what they've been through is what your reader is going through. And so they can understand that, that resonates with them. And then they can see the lessons, they can learn from the lessons. Whereas if you're just like, I'm the expert, do this, do that. I mean, technically, they just could have gone to a YouTube channel for that, right? So I wanted to go over some practical things to think about when you're writing your book and you want to actually make a connection with the readers. So that way they can actually pick up all of your expertise and receive it in a way that's much more open than one that comes across as, well, who's this person? And why are they telling me what they're telling me to do? You want people who are open-minded, not necessarily closed off like that. So here we go. Let's start off with, you guys always know, I always come with my notes because I want to give you all the good things. Don't want to forget anything. Don't want to miss a thing. Okay. So first off, why is formal writing, why does it create distance between you and your readers? I mean, I just basically talked about this, but just formal language, it just creates this like expert versus student dynamic that again, just doesn't create connection. People feel like they're being talked at. When you have complex sentences, it really just slows down the understanding for people. And if you really want people to understand, you got to make the sentences less complicated. Just you get straight to the point. But it's okay to use jargon. It's okay to talk. It's okay to write the book as you speak, because people, again, are creating connection. They're getting to know who you are. And so that's really helpful. When you remove the passive voice, connection is a lot better formed when it's now more of an active voice. So again, passive voice is like, you should do this and you should do that, instead of like, we can do this or I did this, right? So really and truly, it's all about making this connection. When you write formally, it just feels like homework. It's definitely not entertaining. And if a reader's brain has to work harder to process the formal language, they're just going to put it down. It's just going to bounce off of their head. It's not going to seep in, which is the exact opposite of what you want, right? So this is the reason why it's really important that you don't write formally. Don't write like you're a professor. Write like you write your voice. So here are some conversational techniques that make readers feel heard, right? So the connection happens when people feel like they can resonate with the experiences that you're drawing, whether they're your own experiences or the experiences of others that you're describing. But okay, so you can say you. Sorry, I take this back. You can say you, but it's the shoulding, right? Try to remove as many like should do this and should do that and that kind of a thing. But if you do say you, it actually does create, again, an informality, because then the reader feels like you're talking directly to them or with them. You can ask questions. Asking questions directly of the reader is a great way to engage them. It's conversational. It makes them feel like they're a part of a conversation with you, which again is going to create connection. You want to say a lot of we's along with the you's. This again creates a shared experience when you include the we. You can even include things like, you know what I mean? Like, does it sound familiar? Saying phrases like that. Again, it's kind of like how we speak. And so if you write how you speak, that is going to engage a lot more readers. And then if you address the reader's objections before they think of them, something like, you might be wondering, or I know what you're thinking, and then state whatever that objection is, really, really helpful. Again, this just opens up the reader to be more accepting of what it is that you have to share. Please, again, simple language. You could also include all of the contractions that you want, right? So instead of saying do not, you can say don't. Instead of saying you are, you can say you're. I'll instead of I will, right? Those types of things, totally okay, because again, it just makes it easier for the person to read and understand. You want to vary sentence length, but again, just try to make it as simple as possible. You don't want to create really long, complicated sentences that are just all over this book. One or two complicated sentences are okay, but I shouldn't say one or two. You want to mix those in, certainly, because if it helps to get your point across, some things are just complicated. I get it. So sometimes you will just have a complicated sentence, but for the most part, if the majority of your sentences are short, punchy, to the point, it's going to help you a long way. If you say things like, here's the thing, or let's be honest, or the truth is, or any of those work. You can use transitional phrases as well too, like now and so, but here's what's interesting. All of this adds personality, and again, people are going to start to feel a connection to you. So really and truly, just write how you talk. I mean, it really works. The other thing I wanted to go over is how to maintain authority while being approachable. So you are creating a balance, because you do want to create a sense of confidence in your writing, even though you're writing in a casual way. So when you share your expertise through stories rather than like proclamations, that's going to be huge. You can establish confidence, but also retain your warmth. This is a really great way to do that is when you say, like, this is what happened to me and these are the results, but you use warm, easy to understand language. That's a great way to keep the balance. And so when you demonstrate knowledge through examples, not just declarations, this is key. So examples of where you were and where you've gotten to, or if it's not your example personally, somebody else's, where they were at point A, and then how they got to point B and all the things that they learned along the way. That is what you're sharing, right? So you have the expertise because you know how they got from point A to point B, which is exactly what the reader wants, right? They also want to get from point A to point B. And if you can share with them what it is that person did, people love that, right? So there's your expertise while still managing to keep it warm and approachable. If you're vulnerable in your authority, this is actually really also helpful in your approach to keep it warm, keep people engaged and connected to you, so they can admit when you've made mistakes or learned something new. So you can admit when you've made mistakes, when you've learned something new. Share your learning process, not just the conclusions, because this, again, helps people along the way. This is the how-to that they want to know, so that way they don't necessarily have to go through the same mistakes. And so all of this becomes practical wisdom in the end, right? All of these are helpful to make it easy for the reader to understand. There are practical things that they should and should not do, because they can learn from your mistakes. I would also say that it's really helpful to focus on actionable steps rather than theoretical concepts. So try to stay away from theory. I'm a theory gal. I actually don't mind learning some theory because it helps to give some context for why you should do the things that you should do. However, make sure that it is very clear what the steps are for action, because then people are more likely to do them. Always use concrete examples. It's just better. Yeah, don't give examples that are in theory. You can give theory to create context, but don't give examples that are theory. And frame advice as suggestions from a friend, not commands from an expert. The shoulding, you want to keep all of the shoulding out. Keep the word should out. You should just keep that phrase out. This is what I did. This is what I found that worked. Here's what I learned. Here's the mistake that I made. All of that. Keep that stuff in. So I hope that's helpful. So again, if this is helpful, always put a V in the chat to let me know that it's valuable. Let me know if it's helpful. Please let me know. I read all of the comments. In addition to that, you guys know I love doing a summary. So please forgive me if I seem a little loopy. It's just because I'm getting over the fact that I'm late. So again, thank you for grace. But here's a summary of what we talked about today. So why is formal writing creating distance between you and your readers? It, like the formal language, nobody likes that. They're going to get bored. You want to be able to talk with people, not at people. You want to make it seem like you're accessible. You want to create engagement and connection. And the only way that you're going to do that is by using simple sentences, simple words, things like that. And conversational techniques that make readers feel heard include using a lot of you consistently, we consistently throughout the book. When you use that, don't say you should, but just like, you probably wonder this and you might be thinking, like that type of talk. Yes, keep all of that in. You definitely want to also anticipate what they may be thinking or what they may have questions about. So you might be thinking, you might be wondering, all of that is really great. And then simple language, make it accessible, make people feel like they can read this and that it's not too hard, right? When it's the minute you sound like this expert who just knows all the things and all the big words, like you just don't seem accessible and people can't really relate. So go ahead and use the simple language, use the contractions, use the don'ts, the you are, the your instead of the you are, the I'll instead of the I will. Use all of those. It's totally fine. I know that some concepts are difficult or complex, and so you may have some complex sentences, but try to minimize those as much as possible. Surround those lengthier sentences with much shorter, punchier ones. Those would be really helpful. Please use colloquial phrases like, here's the thing, let's be honest. For transitions, use so, or, but here's what's interesting. Use all of that conversational speech. It's really going to make you stand out and make the reader feel like they're getting to know you. So that way you become the expert that they can trust. And that's ultimately what you want, right? Because then they'll take action on what you recommend. So how to maintain authority while remaining approachable, like keeping this balance, is again, sharing your expertise through the stories that you've learned. Instead of telling them you should do this, it's like, here's what I've learned. I was at point A and I did all of these things and this is how I got to point B. Certainly maintain your vulnerability, share what you've learned, share the mistakes that you've made, and then focus on these actionable steps that you can take rather than theoretical concepts. Concepts for context are helpful, but don't give practical advice as theory. You want to give things that people can actually do. All right. Again, if you found this helpful, please let me know in the comments. I read all of the comments. Let me know if there's something that you want me to talk about in terms of your next book. When you're writing a book, let me know. What are some of the things that have you stuck, that have you thinking, oh my God, can I really do this? I would love to answer any of your questions. But until then, I'll see you guys next Monday. Take care, everyone. Bye.